Welcome to the first installment of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Shadow Review series. Allow me to first say that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Series is one of my favorites in anime of all time, so I don't think it would be fair for me to judge it as a whole, so instead, I'm going to be judging it by each season of each series on the following criteria: plot, characters, content, voice choice, truth through the manga or original series, Japanese to English transfer, and anything else I see fit. Now, I will begin with the very first series of Yu-Gi-Oh!, known to us as the Shadow Games, or Season 0. The plot occurs in the first 7 volumes of the manga, in which Yugi first solves the Millennium Puzzle, and the nameless pharaoh, Yami no Yugi or Mohitori no Yugi, begins to play shadow games with bullies and evildoers galore. Overall, a good plot and what Takahashi intended. Now, as for the characters, we start off with both Yugis. Now, I should say that both are done extremely well as far as writing goes. Little Yugi was timid and caring, Yami Yugi was badass and confident. Everything you could ask for in both of them. Jonochi, or Joey, a troublemaker who smartasses and picks fights with people, was also done very well. Honda, Tristan, unfortunately did not share such a fate as the previous two. Instead of a troublemaker and a fighter like Jonochi, he turned out to be a preppy kid who volunteers for janitor work. He insists on calling it a beautification club, and apparently, he ran for class president and failed miserably. Anzu, or Taya, was much better though. She had a tough and adamant personality, yet kind to those she cares about at the same time, almost to the bill of what Takahashi intended. Unfortunately, there's one other addition to the cast I must point out. That unfounded addition was Miho Nasaka. Now, I know a few fans are booing at me right now, but let's consider the character for a moment and the inconsistency with the manga. Miho was a one-time appearance in the manga who Honda had a crush on. She was replaced by a random extra when the chapter was made into an episode, an extra who had a crush on Joey. Now, I wouldn't mind her reoccurrence if not for her being completely out of character. With the original content, she was a shy, quiet girl who was also known as Ribbon for the ribbon she wore in her hair. Cute. What do we have in Season 0? A materialistic ditzy and all-round dumb girl who is an oh my god away from being a valley girl. Yeah, nothing like we had in the original. Then we have Kaiba. You have to give respect to Kaiba. Without him, the series probably wouldn't have gone on as long as it did. His character was very well done. He had the arrogant air to him, and the slight hint of maniacal obsession, but one of my problems is, I bet this sounds familiar, screw the rules, I have green hair. That's right. Due to Toei's budget, we have the green-haired Kaiba, who would later go on to inspire the character Noah in Season 3. Thankfully, this changes with the release of the Season 0 movie, which also had an improvement on another topic that I will discuss. But, one more character that will recur in later on in the series, Ryo Bakura. Cue fangirl screaming. Now, Bakura, I have to say, he was down to the letter with how he was done. This is probably, and the last episodes were probably my favorite. Bakura's Shadow Game really did a good job of introducing him as Thief King Bakura, which he would later appear on in Season 5. He was to steal the Millennium Puzzle and claim the power of the Pharaoh and release a dark force on the Earth, which was early revealed to be Zork, which was simply known as a game piece called Zork the Dark One. No, wait, it was Dark Master Zork. I'm sorry. Dark Master Zork, who was the ultimate boss of Monster World, who would later become the ultimate boss of the series. Okay, we're done with characters. Now let's move on to content. Content for the most part. There were unfortunate fillers every now and then, but this was during the time that the manga was being written, so some of these are understandable. Although, when you consider the manga was far more violent than this series was, which says a lot because this series maintained a lot of the violence that was originally in the series. But I can't really complain about anything except Duel Monsters. Now, before you ask on how the game is played, if you've seen Yu-Gi-Oh!, you know a basic idea. Season 0 doesn't even get it right. Season 0 depicts a game mat that's completely different from how it was done in the manga, no less. The card designs were completely off. It has the Magic and Wizards logo in the background. Yes, Duel Monsters was originally called Magic and Wizards as a parody on the Magic series. Or rather, it was inspired by it. Magic and Wizards became the back of the card, yet they called it in the series Duel Monsters. Now, all that aside, the Duel Monsters look fairly shabby, but it was Toei, so the budget was subpar. Now, as far as everything else, the Shadow games, the way they were done, I have to say they did a fairly good job with that. Duel Monsters was the only issue I had, but that was severely improved with the release of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Season 0 movie, as I mentioned earlier, where Kaiba seems to have introduced the virtual reality system again, and it seems similar to the Duel Disk introduced in Duelist Kingdom. Now, for voice choice, I'm afraid I don't remember the seiyuu for these, but Yugi's voice, very high-pitched, very well done, and Yami Yugi seem to still sound like the same person. And then there's Jonichi and Honda. They were well done for the characters that were written out. Unfortunately, Honda was written out to be way out of character, but I suppose in that respect he was in character. And Miho was about as obnoxious as you can make her, and Anzu almost sounded hot. Kaiba, he sounded the way you expected somebody who spends most of their time playing card games to sound. Bakura, very Bishi, but not too different from Duel Monsters. Truth to the manga was another issue on this one because there were a lot of fillers in this. Honestly, there were quite a few. But as far as the way some of the things were depicted, I think it was fairly true to the manga. I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Then Japanese to English transfer does not apply to this since it was never dubbed, and personally, I'm thankful that it hasn't been. As for miscellaneous content that I'd like to criticize on, the only thing I can really complain about in that field is just how badly it was animated. Just to clarify, Toei did Dragon Ball Z. I believe they also did Sailor Moon. You'd have to look that up for me, though. But they're infamous for series that looked really retro. Plus, keep in mind that the special effects they had were very, very primitive compared to what they had in the Duel Monsters series began. You will notice this if you watch the series. I personally recommend that you do and formulate your own opinion on it. And, well, that's it.